Hello everybody, my name is Laura, and there's no one here. That's okay, because I'm trying this out. I love teaching, and I thought I would try teaching live on the YouTube, just to see how it goes. I've been teaching since '95, and I love it. And my new passion is all things words. I love the history of the English language and how that affects phonics and morphology. And I feel like I have a lot of knowledge. I don't know everything, but I know a fair amount. And I love to relay that knowledge and hopefully make you smarter, whether you're a teacher or a learner. Doesn't matter, just to help you understand our language better so you can appreciate it better, and then if you're teaching, you can teach it better and explain it better. So that's why I'm here. That's why I'm doing this trial. I am new to this. I have set up a platform in studio mode, so forgive me for seeming maybe a little slow with everything, but I'm learning. I gotta start somewhere. When I started teaching, we didn't even have computers in the classroom, so I feel like I've come a long way. All right, so let's get started, shall we? Have you ever thought that English is stupid? English is weird. Spelling is just ridiculous. If you're like me, taught in the education programs of the 90s, the phonics that I was taught how to teach was maybe this paragraph in a book this size. And so most of my teaching career, I thought English made no sense, phonics was weird, spelling could be invented. So when students would ask me, why is such and such a word spelled this way, I would say really helpful things like, I don't know, English is weird, English is crazy, some old man made it up. And it wasn't until 2005, when I was in a letters training, that I learned otherwise, that actually there's a history to the English language, but I didn't quite fully understand it. Like, I would say it was an epiphany, like it opened my eyes, but I didn't grasp it. And years later, when I took another course, MZ's intermediate course, that's when I started better understanding it. So with anything that you're trying to learn, sometimes you get introduced to it and it doesn't quite stick. But maybe you know, oh, I'd like to understand this more. And then maybe it comes up again and you start understanding it better. And what those two experiences did for me, it was a springboard. And I just have started researching and learning as much as I could. I don't know everything. And sometimes if you ever have a question in the chat, I might say, I don't know. And when it comes to words and word origin, and especially morphology, that's pretty normal. But I'll be learning with you a lot, but also relaying knowledge I have. So let's hop to it. I would like to share something I created to help me make sense of the English language. And hopefully it will help you as I go through this. All right. So this is the English language layer cake, because I needed a visual way to see what I was talking about. This was born out of my desire to put into slots where words are coming from so I could see what I'm talking about. So down at the bottom, you'll see Anglo-Saxon. That's the first layer of our language. It's also known as Old English. You'll see next I have Viking and Old Norse right there. There's a lot of history. There's a lot of history in these two layers. that I'll get into as we go through more lessons. But this is where English was born. So if you need a birth date for English, this would be 450 AD for the Anglo-Saxons coming in. These were the Germanic tribes that came in when the Roman Empire pulled out. And that area was constantly bombarded by the Vikings, and they started coming in the 700s. They settled, took over a large part of England, and words made their way into the English language. So that is the birth of English as we know it. That's why it's on the bottom of my cake. Then, before I go on, let me come back to the bottom again. This part right here, if you've ever heard the term Old English, that's this part. This is the Old English part. Then, something big happened in 1066. The Norman French came in and took over England. And that ushered in thousands of new words that were not Germanic, they were French. And not just any French, they were Norman French. So you have the French coming in, taking over, decimating the Anglo-Saxon ruling class, and taking over the government, taking over law, court. So all things higher level were done in the French language. And this changed English forever. It ushered in a layer of Latin-based Norman French words. These aren't the only time French has come in, but that's the first time it came in and made a difference. Then, I need to make sure we understand, French is Latin-based because the Roman Empire took over that area, and the language that was in what we now know as French merged with Latin. And so a lot of the words are Latin-based. But Norman French is a hybrid French because the Normans were Vikings who landed in France. And those are the people who stayed in France, Normandy area, and then those are the people who ended up taking over English. So that's what came in. But also during this time, pure Latin started coming in more and more through the church, because when French came over, they also brought their monks and religious leadings with them. And so that was in 1066. So I need to update this cake a little bit, but this area right here is what is known as Middle English. So this would be the government, law, fancy words. This would be the church at this point. Now, one way to know the difference is Anglo-Saxon, these are very common. So these Anglo-Saxon tribes were not literate. They were not going around checking books out of libraries and writing. They were just trying to survive from day to day. And so their words reflect that. So in Anglo-Saxon, you might have a word like good, but then when the Norman French came in, they would have said possibly excellent. In Anglo-Saxon, you would have mother. And in 1066, the Middle English, maternal would have been introduced. So you have this new introduction of a lot of synonyms during this time. Well, more history than I can get into. The English throne returned back to an English king, and English became the dominant language again. So Norman French was no longer the language of the upper class. And so this coincided with a lot going on. So this is like the 1400s. So we have the printing press coming in. And so for the first time, everybody could have a book, not just rich people, royalty, and monks, but anybody could have a book in their hands and read. We also had the Renaissance, the rebirth. And this made an interest uprise in all things classical, Latin, and Greek. And then also we had the great vowel shift going on. So words were being written down and spelled how they sounded, but for some reasons they don't really know why. But the vowels changed. And so that's why you have stuff like read, which can be read or read, bread, and steak. And then in the 1500s, we had something called the Scientific Revolution. And who better to get science words from than the Greeks? And so that is our layer cake of the English language. And when you begin to understand that English didn't just drop out of the sky and that it truly is an outcome of what happened in England, then the words that we see and read and spell make a lot more sense. There's a lot more logic to it than most of us were ever taught. So that's the cake, and I'll be going over it in more depth. I also just want to bring up Google Earth for a second. And I want to make sure we understand that when we talk about the history of English, we are talking about England. Okay, right? That chunk here in the middle. We are not talking about Wales right there on the left. It went away. Wales is its own thing, and that's not where the English language began with the Anglo-Saxons. We are also not talking up in the north about Scotland. Okay, that is not England. Those are all part of the United Kingdom or the island area there, but England itself is that part south of Scotland and to the east of Wales. And so that's the birth of our language that we speak and know as English. So that is my first teaching. I had nobody viewing, but thank you for letting me practice on YouTube. And you too can become smarter about our language and not feel defeated in spelling or why words are the way they are. Because the more you think about it, the easier it becomes and the more fascinating it all is. I hope y'all have a great day, and I will see you on my next live stream.